Welcome to episode number 2 of Chad's Adventures. Episode number 1 was a big success, and as of right now, I've had 1,333 views on my YouTube station, which has far exceeded my expectations. I've had a lot of positive feedback. I appreciate that very much. So keep watching and look for upcoming episodes. Subscribe to my channel so you can see when they get posted and you'll be notified. Well, I have a couple of small comments about episode number 1. The first thing is that St. John's School, I said it was just for boys, and St. Basil's Academy was just for girls, and that is true. However, it wasn't always true. There were times that both of those schools were co-ed. I just don't know the years. And then the old post office on Eden Street that I highlighted briefly that was built in 1935. Well, it is owned by a really cool guy named Terry Grainer. I met him recently, but he does way more out of that building than just sell yard ornaments. His business is called Cabinets Unlimited. He does a lot of things. I'm going to take you there soon on an upcoming episode so you can meet him and you can see inside that building, which is fascinating. I was able to see it when I met him. So now, based on the feedback I've gotten and speaking to my agent, the episodes that I'm going to make are going to begin to be shorter. They're going to cover fewer places, but I will make more of them. And for our adventure today, we're going to stay in Plaquemine, and I'm going to take you back to City Hall so you can see the inside of that building. It's beautiful. So I'm going to take you there today. And then I'm going to take you to show you something else that here in town that I think is really cool and interesting, but you have to judge for yourself. But before we go, first, here's a few words from my sponsors. Wait, what? My agent is telling me something. You don't have any sponsors. What do you mean? In the words of Sean Payton, just do your job. Let's go. I want to apologize about getting onto my agent like that in front of you, but sometimes people need a swift kick in the rear end, if you know what I mean. And then another thing I wanted to mention as we travel to the courthouse is I've talked to a lot of people that live in Plaquemine or are from Plaquemine, and they mentioned to me that there's nothing to do here, there's nothing to see, it's boring, it's a dying town. And I just want to disagree with that a little bit. I think if you're in a place for a long time, maybe you get desensitized to it, and you have to open your eyes and venture out and go see things and do things. And hopefully after my first episode, people have gone to the Iberville Museum and the Lockhouse Museum and take advantage of those things if you've never been, or maybe go again because they add things all the time. So I want to encourage you to do that. Go out and see things. So here I am at the courthouse, but before we go inside, I want to show you something on these grounds, just a few steps away down the sidewalk. So let's walk down there and I'll show it to you. The Iberville Veterans Memorial is dedicated to the veterans of Iberville Parish. It's made of concrete, translucent blocks, and a water element. It reflects the harshness of war, the strength of our military, and aspects of Iberville Parish. The water element is a nod to the importance of waterways to Iberville's history and economic stability. So I found someone to interview here, but he doesn't talk. He just sits here like this. He's got some dog tags in his hand. He's got a military outfit on. Kind of looks like a Navy outfit. Cool statue. Here's another statue of a serviceman in honor of what they've done for this country. So, it's life size. So here are the translucent blocks that honors our military. The first one is the United States Air Force, and then next is the United States Army, and then next is United States Coast Guard, and then the United States Navy. My son serves in the Navy. And then we have the United States Marine Corps. And then right above it, it says, in honor of all those whose strength and courage we owe the freedom of this nation. And we certainly do. So I want to thank all veterans who have served this great nation. And I'm very proud to have my own son serving in the Navy right now. Very proud. And here's another statue of a man standing by this wall, and he's reading things. And right here are copies of letters and telegrams that were sent during wartime. And I want to read one of them to you. It's dated in 1918. And it's from the Secretary of the Interior in Washington. And he writes it to Mr. Wellman Wally from White Castle. He says, "Dear Mr. Wally, by today's paper, I see that you have met with a loss in the front. I know that this brave soldier would not have you grieve for him, but rather rejoice that he has such a glorious ending. For what can be finer than to die in an effort to save the lives and make happier the lot of others?" Wow, we really owe a lot of gratitude to this family and to this brave soldier. This beautiful building was built in 1906 as the Iberville Parish Governmental Building. It was once nicknamed the Great Temple of Justice. It served as the Iberville Parish Courthouse from 1906 to 1985. A new courthouse was opened right behind this 1906 building, but since 1985, the building has been housing the Plaquemine City Hall. So let's go in and see what it looks like inside. As I walk through the halls of this old historic building, I can just imagine activity of years gone by people who are no longer with us. I would love to hear their conversations, observe them during a time when there were no cell phones, no internet, no video games. It really was a much simpler time back then. And here's the courtroom. Let's go inside and see what's going on. It was such a treat to see this courtroom. This room really has a feeling to it. It has a feeling of honor, of professionalism, of reverence. It really is beautiful, and it looks like it has mahogany wood for furniture. There's the jury box, and here's the seating area. I'd like to address the court. what should I say? Standing on the south side of Plaquemine at the corner of Highway 1, which is a very busy highway, and St. Louis Road right here. It goes that direction. And there's a school right here. There's a school behind me. So there's a lot right here. It's a very busy place. The hospital is over there also. But what I want to show you is a very strange thing on this site that I drive by here all the time. I didn't know this, but on this site lie buried Captain Joseph Irwin, a Revolutionary War soldier, his wife, and his daughter. And you can see behind me those three graves right there. That's where they're at. So Colonel Joseph Irwin was born in 1762 in North Carolina. He died in 1829 right here in Iberville Parish. He's buried right behind me. So I thought, what in the world is a man like that doing right here as a Revolutionary War soldier? This is a picture of him. This is what he looked like. So as I learned more about Mr. Irwin, we do know that he was in the Carolina militia, and he was in the Battle of Long Island in 1776. And somehow in the course of time, after the war, or the Revolutionary War, he made it to Tennessee, and he's one of the early settlers of Tennessee. And he had a family there, and he became wealthy, acquired land, and was a landowner, had crops, and one of his daughters married a man by the name of Charles Dickinson. And Charles Dickinson was he was a guy that was well liked. He was smart, and one of the things about it, he was very good with the gun too. He was a good shot. Well, they like to race horses, and so he got in a horse race with another person, and there was a dispute about it. And then he, at the end of that horse race, after their dispute, Charles Dickinson, his son-in-law, Captain Colonel Irwin's son-in-law, made an insult toward this man's wife. And so because of that, they agreed to a duel. So dueling was outlawed in Tennessee, so they had to cross over into Kentucky. So they had a duel where they stood, they each had a pistol, and they stood so many paces apart, and when someone yelled fire, they raised their pistol and fire their gun at their opponent. So Charles Dickinson was good with the gun, so his opponent decided to have a strategy. And his strategy was that he was gonna not fire, he was gonna let Dickinson fire first. And this man was slender, he was kind of skinny, he wasn't as good of a shot as Dickinson was. So they said fire, and they thought, well, when Dickinson would raise his gun and fire, that trying to do it quickly, that it would mess with his aim, and he wouldn't be able to hit him properly. So he took that chance, and they yelled fire. Dickinson fired and shot the man in the chest, but it didn't kill him. It wound up breaking a couple of his ribs, and the bullet lodged in his chest, and actually he lived with that bullet for the rest of his life, and it caused him pain for the rest of his life. And so the man got hit by the bullet, and then he proceeded to use his strategy to, now Dickinson had to stand there, and he took careful aim and fired and killed him. And the ironic thing about this is that the man who he's dealing with that killed Charles Dickinson was none other than Andrew Jackson, General Andrew Jackson, who became famous for the Battle of New Orleans, became President of the United States. This is obviously before any of that. So Andrew Jackson killed Charles Dickinson, which was Colonel Irwin's son-in-law. Now after that, Colonel Irwin was devastated by that. And so he left Tennessee and went down the river. He goes to Natchez and eventually makes it here to this spot. He acquires this land and begins to cultivate it, and he grows cotton and indigo and sugar cane, becomes even more wealthy than he already was. So he dies in 1829. They bury him here on his property where he built his plantation. Now his plantation is just right down this road. I'm about to take you there. It's not there anymore. It was destroyed by a flood in 1850. And St. Louis plantation was built on its spot. It was 1806 when Joseph Irwin's son-in-law, Charles Dickinson, was killed by Andrew Jackson in a duel over horse racing and insults. So captive Joseph Irwin moved to Louisiana in 1807. He established the home plantation, which was also known as Irwin's Castle, on which the current St. Louis plantation now stands. The home plantation was destroyed by flooding of the Mississippi River in 1850. So St. Louis plantation was built in 1857 by U.S. Representative Edward Gay, and today is a private residence of the Gay family. It was named for the city of St. Louis. It has 6 columns and a gallery across the front, along with a rooftop belvedere. The home also has a cellar, which is rare among plantations, and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, but is not open for tours. I hope that one day the family will decide to share this jewel with the world by giving tours. Thank you for coming along today on my adventure, and I'm back home and I plan on watching football for the rest of the day. So I'm going to sign off, so be on the lookout for my next adventure, and I hope you can join me then.